The order comes at 5:47 a.m., not from Berlin, not from the High Command, from one man standing on the bridge of the most powerful warship in the Southern Hemisphere, watching British cruisers circle him like wolves. Captain Hans Langsdorff reads the message twice, then he folds it, puts it in his breast pocket, looks out at the gray water of the Rio de la Plata. He has 72 hours to make a decision that will define him forever: surrender or die. He chooses a third option nobody expected. September 1939, the Atlantic Ocean. The Admiral Graf Spee slides out of Wilhelmshaven at night. She is 610 feet long, 16,000 tons of steel, 6 11-inch guns that can hit a target 17 miles away. She carries a crew of 1,150 men and enough fuel to circle the globe without stopping. The Germans call her a Panzerschiff, a pocket battleship, small enough to outrun anything that can destroy her, powerful enough to destroy anything that can catch her. Her mission is simple and brutal: commerce raiding. Hunt British merchant ships, sink them, starve England of supplies, win the war slowly, ship by ship. Captain Hans Langsdorff commands her. He is 45 years old, thin face, precise mustache, posture like a man who was born on a ship. He joined the Imperial German Navy at 18, fought at the Battle of Jutland in 1916, watched empires collapse around him, rebuilt his career in the New Germany. He is not a Nazi, he is a naval officer. There is a difference, and he knows exactly what that difference costs him. October 1939, South Atlantic. The Graf Spee's first kill is a British cargo ship called the Clement. You're on the bridge when she appears on the horizon. Just another merchant, slow, unarmed, carrying 9,800 tons of kerosene from Texas to England. Langsdorff gives the order. Warning shots across the bow. The Clement stops immediately. Standard procedure. The crew abandons ship into lifeboats. Langsdorff orders his men to give them food, water, and a compass, heading to the nearest port. Then he sinks the Clement with a torpedo. He watches her go down. His face doesn't change, but he notes something in his log that night. All crew accounted for. No casualties. It becomes his obsession. His private war within the war. Sink the ships, save the men. Over the next 3 months, the Graf Spee hunts across 30,000 miles of ocean. She sinks 9 ships totaling 50,000 tons of cargo. Every single crew member survives. Langsdorff personally ensures it. He picks up survivors, treats their wounded, transfers them to neutral ships. The British are furious, not just because he's sinking ships, because he's doing it cleanly. There's no propaganda value in an enemy who saves your sailors. Meanwhile, the British Admiralty forms Force G, 8 warships assigned to one mission: find the Graf Spee and destroy her. 3 of those ships will find her, sooner than anyone expects. December 13th, 1939, 6:14 a.m., South Atlantic, 300 miles east of Uruguay. The lookout sees them first. 3 shapes on the horizon, moving fast. British. Commodore Henry Harwood has been hunting the Graf Spee for weeks. He commands 3 cruisers: HMS Exeter, HMS Ajax, HMS Achilles. None of them individually match the Graf Spee's firepower. Her 11-inch guns outrange everything Harwood has. But Harwood has a plan. Split the attack, come from 2 directions simultaneously, force Langsdorff to divide his fire, accept casualties, keep pressing. At 6:17 a.m., both sides open fire. The Battle of the River Plate begins. The Graf Spee's first salvo finds the Exeter immediately. 3 11-inch shells hit her in the first 4 minutes. 1 destroys her forward turrets. 1 tears through her bridge, killing everyone on it except the captain. 1 starts a fire below decks that takes an hour to control. The Exeter is effectively crippled in the first exchange, but Harwood's gamble works. The Ajax and Achilles close from the opposite direction, their smaller guns hammering the Graf Spee's superstructure. Langsdorff has to split his attention. His fire becomes less concentrated. For 90 minutes, The battle rages. The Graf Spee takes 70 hits. Her fuel processing system is damaged. Her galley is destroyed. One of her gun turrets develops a fault. A shell penetrates near the waterline and starts a slow flood. More critically, she has only 16 shells left for her main guns. At 7:40 a.m., Langsdorff breaks off the engagement. He could have pressed the attack. The Exeter is done. The Ajax has lost 2 turrets. Even the Achilles is damaged. One more hour of fighting and he could sink all 3. But his crew, his 1,150 men. He runs the numbers. He heads for the nearest neutral port instead. Montevideo, Uruguay, December 13th, 1939, 11:30 p.m., Montevideo Harbor. The Graf Spee enters port under searchlights. Crowds line the waterfront. Uruguayan citizens, journalists, diplomats, spies. Everyone wants to see the famous pocket battleship. Everyone wants to know what happens next. Langsdorff has 36 wounded men who need immediate surgery. He has dead sailors who need burial. He has a ship with 70 shell holes that needs at least 2 weeks of repair. Uruguayan law gives him 72 hours. He knows immediately it's not enough. He transfers his wounded to Uruguayan hospitals. He buries his dead with full naval honors. He personally attends every funeral, stands at attention for every coffin. Then he sits down and does the math. Under international law, a belligerent warship cannot stay in a neutral port more than 24 hours without interning the vessel and its crew for the duration of the war. Uruguay extends this to 72 hours as a courtesy. After that, the Graf Spee must either leave or surrender her crew. Langsdorff cables Berlin. Ship not seaworthy for Atlantic crossing. Request permission to repair. Alternatively, request instructions for internment in Argentina. Berlin's answer arrives within hours. No internment, no surrender. Proceed to Buenos Aires or fight your way out. Buenos Aires is 120 miles away, up the Rio de la Plata. The British cruisers are waiting outside the harbor. Fresh reinforcements are coming. Intelligence reports, some false, some exaggerated, suggest the aircraft carrier HMS Ark Royal and the battle cruiser Renown are approaching. They are not, but Langsdorff doesn't know that. He reads Berlin's order again. Fight your way out with 16 main gun shells against what he believes is a carrier group. He looks at his crew, 1,150 men. He thinks about the 9 merchant ships he sank. Every crew member survived. That was his private rule, his line, the one thing he controlled in this war. He is not going to spend 1,150 German lives for nothing. He sends a second cable to Berlin. I request permission to scuttle the ship to avoid her falling into enemy hands. Crew will be transferred to Argentina as neutral territory. Berlin approves, reluctantly, with one condition. The ship must be beyond use. Nothing left for the enemy. December 17th, 1939, 6:15 p.m., Rio de la Plata. The Graf Spee leaves Montevideo with a skeleton crew. Most of the 1,150 men are already on Argentine tugboats, watching from a distance. They don't know exactly what's coming. Some suspect, nobody speaks. Langsdorff stands on the bridge one last time. The British cruisers are waiting outside the harbor entrance. 250,000 people line the waterfront of Montevideo and Buenos Aires to watch. Radio broadcasts carry the moment live across South America, Europe, and America. Everyone expects a battle. What they get is silence. At 6:47 p.m., 6 miles off the coast, the Graf Spee slows to a stop. The skeleton crew transfers to the tugboats. At 7:54 p.m., the scuttling charges detonate. The first explosion comes from the forward ammunition magazine. The fireball rises 100 feet into the evening sky, orange and black. Then the secondary explosions start. The fuel tanks, the engine room. One by one, controlled detonations tear through the most powerful warship in the South Atlantic. She takes 12 minutes to sink. The crowd watches in silence. Even the British officers watching through binoculars say nothing. At 8:06 p.m., the Admiral Graf Spee slides beneath the surface of the Rio de la Plata. She takes no crew members with her. Not one. Langsdorff watches from a tugboat. His face, witnesses say, shows nothing at all. December 19th, 1939. Buenos Aires. Room 4, Novel Arsenal. Langsdorff spends 2 days writing letters. One to his parents, one to his wife, one to the families of the 36 men who died in the battle. He writes each one by hand, takes his time, gets the words right, then he lays out the Imperial German Navy battle ensign on the floor of his room. The old flag, the Kaiser's flag, not the Nazi swastika. He chooses carefully. He lies down on it. At 3 a.m., Hans Langsdorff shoots himself with his service pistol. He leaves a final note to the German ambassador. I can now report that I have fulfilled my task as commander of the Admiral Graf Spee with honor. The crew performed beyond all expectations. I am happy to follow my ship. He is 45 years old. His crew is alive, all 1,114 survivors. Interned in Argentina, most of them eventually settling there permanently, building lives, raising families. In the final accounting, Langsdorff sank 9 ships, took 0 merchant lives, fought 1 major battle, lost 36 men, and chose to die rather than spend his crew's lives on a hopeless fight. The British Navy gives him a full naval funeral in Buenos Aires. Officers from HMS Ajax, the ship he fought 3 days earlier, attend in dress uniform. His enemy buries him with honors, what Berlin never understood. The German High Command calls the scuttling a humiliation. Propaganda Minister Joseph Goebbels scrambles to reframe it. The Graf Spee was undefeated in battle, he says. The scuttling was a tactical decision, not a defeat. Germany remains unbroken. Nobody believes it. The images of that fireball, 100 feet high, broadcast live to millions, become one of the defining moments of the early war. The pocket battleship that hunted the entire South Atlantic for 3 months, destroyed by her own captain. But here's what Goebbels never mentions. The Graf Spee's hunting campaign had already achieved its strategic purpose. In 3 months, she forced the British to deploy 8 warships, including carriers and cruisers, to hunt 1 ship. 8 warships pulled away from other duties. 8 warships burning fuel, consuming supplies, occupying officers and crew who were needed elsewhere. The commerce war she waged sank 50,000 tons of cargo. It cost the British months of shipping delays on South Atlantic routes, and the psychological effect was enormous. Every British merchant captain in the South Atlantic spent 3 months knowing the Graf Spee was out there, somewhere invisible. Insurance rates tripled. Captains requested armed escorts that didn't exist. 1 ship, 1 captain, 3 months. Strategic disruption across an entire ocean. And when it ended, not 1 civilian sailor was dead. The numbers nobody quotes. World War II will kill 70 to 85 million people. Hans Langsdorff commands one of the most powerful warships on Earth. He has the firepower to kill thousands. He has the orders to sink everything in his path. Instead, he sinks 9 ships, saves every crew, fights 1 battle, loses 36 men, destroys his own ship, kills himself. By the standards of the war surrounding him, his campaign is almost incomprehensibly humane. The British sailors from the Exeter, Ajax, and Achilles, who survived the battle, some of them will say in interviews decades later that Langsdorff was the most honorable enemy they ever faced. The merchants he sank. Their crews received Christmas cards from Graf Spee crew members interned in Argentina. One British captain writes a letter to a Buenos Aires newspaper after the war. The men who sank my ship saved my life. I don't know what else to say about that. December 17th, 1984. Montevideo, Uruguay. 45 years after the battle, divers reach the wreck of the Admiral Graf Spee. She lies in 33 feet of water, 6 miles offshore, surprisingly intact. The explosions tore through her systems but left the hull largely recognizable. They find the ship's rangefinder, bronze fittings, brass instruments, the ship's eagle figurehead, the German Imperial Eagle, not the Nazi version. Langsdorff's choice again, even in the hardware he installed. The wreck becomes a diving site. Uruguayan schoolchildren visit on field trips. Historians write papers. Documentary crews film at depth. But the detail everyone keeps returning to is the same. She sank in 12 minutes. Controlled, deliberate, perfect execution. A warship that went down exactly the way her captain intended. He was the only thing that went down that night that nobody planned. The last question. You stand on the waterfront in Montevideo today. The river is brown and wide and quiet. The sky is the same color it was on December 17th, 1939. Out there, 6 miles, the water above the Graf Spee looks exactly like the water around it. You think about a man who was given a choice between following orders and protecting his crew. He found a third option. He always found a third option, and then he paid for it with the only thing he had left. The question isn't whether Hans Langsdorff was a hero. The question is, what do you call a man who fights for a regime he doesn't believe in, protects the lives of his enemies, destroys his own ship to save his crew, and then decides that living with the consequences isn't something he's willing to do? History doesn't have a word for it. Maybe it doesn't need one. The water doesn't care about words. 6 miles out, the Graf Spee rests on the bottom. She's been there for 85 years. She'll be there long after the last person who remembers her name is gone.